Once again, the 2021 Fantasy Football Almanac and Draft Guide is out there. I want to do these player vignettes, and I want to talk about Travis Etienne because early in the draft season, when I started writing the book, based on Etienne getting drafted, in the early rounds, I think he was like early second rounder for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, he's going to be great. He was great at Clemson. He's going to be great for Jacksonville and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, God. It happens every year. Something like this happens. And we look, especially at running backs, we look at average draft. We look at the draft collateral, right? You're looking at the NFL team and where they drafted the player. The running back position doesn't matter as much for a couple of reasons. Now, outside, like when I was playing fantasy football in the 90s, this mattered. Today, not so much. Because you have like 3 running backs on a roster that are going to contribute throughout the season. That's just how, load balancing works in the NFL. They don't want to absolutely run a guy into the ground. Outside of like Derrick Henry, that's a rare situation where you get a dude just like going crazy and playing like 98% of the carries go to Derrick Henry. And for good reason, by the way, for Tennessee. He definitely pays off. But Travis Etienne, at first, his average draft position was higher than James Robinson. And I'm just like, okay, pump the brakes, everybody. Pump the brakes. And let me say this. Travis Etienne, I thought coming into the draft, I don't know if he's my favorite running back. Like if I was an NFL GM, would he be my number 1 running back on my board? I don't know because I do like Najee Harris. And I do like a couple of the other guys. But if he's not number 1 by himself, I'm talking about Travis Etienne, he'd be 1A. I mean, he's certainly... he's so good that I don't know that I would say, hey, he's my number 2 running back. And I'm talking about just NFL talent, not his situation. Now, I said the same thing last year about J.K. Dobbins. He was absolutely my favorite talent running back going into the NFL. I thought DeAndre Swift, if you read my 2020 Almanac last year, I said DeAndre Swift was my... I thought he was the most well-rounded, the most NFL-ready running back to play 3 downs in the NFL. Which I'll talk about him in a little bit because he played in Darrell Bevell's offense last year in Detroit, and that is a big storyline where Travis Etienne is involved. And then I also thought Jonathan Taylor, kind of like Etienne, what I'm saying now, I thought Jonathan Taylor was kind of like my 1A. J.K. Dobbins, I still feel is the better talent, but I will admit, and freely admit, and in my 2021 rankings reflect this, Jonathan Taylor, I think, is in the better situation based on how his offense uses him. So I think he should probably be the number 1 back, although, beware because Marlon Mack is back. Mack attack from that Achilles injury. If he can go, then he's going to get more snaps than you want him getting, Jonathan Taylor owners in dynasty formats. But still, I think he's definitely, kind of a lock to be a fantasy star. Certainly when he got the carries last year, he was a monster. So, but back to Travis Etienne. People at the start of the season, they forgot about James Robinson. The dude can run. And I think they forgot a little bit about the change in offense. And this is what the Almanac of Sam, as you know, does more than other books and other publications out there, is we examine the offense. We break down what the load balancing is going to be for the players. We break down what the play calling is going to be for the players. And the example I always use is in the Dirk Cutter years in Atlanta. He was the offensive coordinator. He left. He was the head coach at Tampa Bay. He came back and was the offensive coordinator again for Atlanta. And those years, man, the Atlanta Falcons passed like crazy. Just threw the ball. And Tampa Bay, by the way, when he was the head coach, same thing. So the running backs are deflated there just, again, based on offensive system. Now, I know last year, Todd Gurley, all that, it's an outlier. Let me just say that. But Darrell Bevell, year after year, from his Minnesota years when he had Adrian Peterson, from his Seattle years when he had Marshawn Lynch, he likes running backs that can pound, right up the middle, like running through the middle. That's not going to be how they're going to use Travis Etienne. What I think will end up happening is it'll be very similar to what Bevell did with Swift last year. And remember, Swift, I thought my best NFL-ready 3-down back last year. Even more so than Jonathan Taylor coming to the league. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor, once again, had the better season last year, freely admit that. But part of that, too, has to do with, look, everybody that had DeAndre Swift remembers week 1 last year of the 2020 year. At the end of the game, dropped a pass on the last play or second to last play. I think it was like a 4th down. Dropped a pass right in his hands in the end zone, would have won the game. We didn't. His face was on milk cartons for like months. I mean, it took him until the back half of the season to really even fight his way back. You saw Adrian Peterson, you saw like Kerryon Johnson, you saw all these other contributors. Swift wasn't getting on the field. And me and my co-host from the Fantasy Football Almanac show, we were like, dude, put him back in. He dropped a pass. Get him back on the field. Anyway, obviously Matt Patricia gets canned. Swift comes in and he has a great year at the end of the year. That's kind of what I feel is going to happen with Etienne. This system is going to produce, I think, 2 running backs that are very, I guess you couldn't call them prolific because I think we'll get a good snap share. I think we'll see a lot of 2-back. James Robinson absolutely will have a valuable role on this team. And lately in the last, probably even the last couple of weeks here, his average draft position has actually been, you could call it skyrocketing because, it was buried before. Now he's getting up higher again. So I think he offers reasonable value at where he's being taken, but obviously reasonable risk as well. Now, where Travis Etienne is falling, whereas before he was kind of ranked and being drafted ahead of James Robinson, now he's fallen back behind him, pretty significantly. He's currently, according to Fantasy Pros, the 35th ranked running back. His average draft position overall is around the 83 range. So if you're in a 12-team league, that's around the 7th round, the back part of the 7th round. If you're in a 10-team league, you're looking at the 8th round. So you're looking at a 7th to 8th round. I think that's pretty good value for Etienne. Just keep in mind, my opinion is, and we've seen the press, they're starting to line him up kind of as a receiver, kind of the slasher guy. They already have Laviska Shenault kind of playing that role. The new offense coming in, I think we know what we're going to get with Bevell. But just bear in mind that it might take a few weeks, like J.K. Dobbins last year, like DeAndre Swift last year. And by the way, if Mac didn't get hurt in Indianapolis, I think Taylor, you saw the snap counts in week 1. I don't know that Taylor would have really taken over that backfield until I don't know about the back half of last season, maybe around week 5, week 6. And that's what happens to rookie running backs now. It generally takes a while for them to break through and really grab the snaps early in the season. So you have to keep that in mind. If you're drafting Etienne, just assume that he's not really going to pay off for the first few, maybe the first quarter of the season, and then he's going to provide a lot more value towards the end of the season. So that's it for my little Travis Etienne vignette here. We'll be doing more of these on the show. Once again, Fantasy Football Almanac and Draft Guide available on Amazon.com. Check the show notes below.